Hello there, and welcome back to another video. And in this one, we will cover context grounding. So, what is context grounding? Let me explain with an example. Well, I will first mention the use case that I'm trying to demonstrate. My use case is an HR query portal, or let's say a bot which should query or answer to employee queries. And for that, the bot has to refer various different employee policies, such as leave policies, you have employee benefit program, mediclaim policies, etc. So that when employee asks any question, it should answer by referring these PDFs. Now, let me take the example of ChatGPT, and if I ask how many leaves do I get in a year? Now, this is an employer asking the HR bot to let him or her know of how many leaves does he get. I have not given it any context. And that's why if you see the answer generated is whatever it has in its mind or its intelligence. So it's not related to your organization at all. So it's like annual vacation leave, sick leave. Okay, this is not related to my organization. So why is that? It's because I have not given it context. I have not given it information that it has to refer in order to answer my question. So it's obviously going to generate something like this. And in the system prompt, if I specify a rule that if you do not have any knowledge of this, reply that uh, I do not have necessary knowledge base to answer this question and close the chat. I could mention that in the system prompt. So in that case, it would not reply such a huge text. It would just say, I don't know what you are asking for. But how do I make it aware of my, of the knowledge that I'm asking for? So let me ask the same question. And now I would attach, okay, now I'll try to attach the file. Okay, from company policies, I'll attach the leave policy. Okay, the leave policy file. And now let's see how it answers. Now I've given it context. There you go. And it's perfect. If I show you the leave policy PDF, it's exactly the same thing, right? I have the data here. It's actually made it more, you know, beautiful, I would say, with all these vectors. But yes, as you can see, it's given me the key takeaway, and it's also asking me to summarize, whether I want it summarized or not. Now, if I come to UiPath's use case, okay, UiPath's use case for context rounding. If your process is transactional, okay, let me just clear that. Okay, if your process was transactional, then it would make sense if you remember from the previous video where we uh, went through content generation, the difference between user prompt and system prompt. Now I could attach if the user prompt, I would just write it in short as UP. Okay, let me just as UP, and you had some data. Okay, I would say the question, the actual user input, and then you would attach that particular context file. Okay, in our case, let's say it is a PDF. Okay, I would attach the PDF. If it's a transactional data where every context or every information is different or dynamic, where the base question is the same, the data it has to extract, the PDF, is always unique. Okay, is always unique. In that case, the context is directly attached as a PDF to the user prompt. Okay, or if it's a you have fixed rules. Okay, there are multiple PDFs, multiple different rules that it has to follow. Maybe like a loan uh, application bot, where a loan approval bot, where it has to go through various different policies to answer. Then you might think, okay, let me put that in the system prompt because these rules hardly change, right? So along with the system prompt, I might attach all the different policy files, right? All the different policy files can be attached. You might use extract text to extract text from these PDFs, but does is it the efficient way? Because now you are attaching so many different PDFs. The token count would just spike up to like 10k tokens, who knows how much, Okay, 10k may be too much. And in ChatGPT's context window, it can only support around 6k tokens. So this will be, it's not efficient. You're feeding data that it doesn't need, you know and this is in terms of system prompt. You could also attach it in the user prompt. Consider you attached so many rules with the user prompt, PDFs. Even that is efficient, that is inefficient, sorry. So what's the right way? If it's transactional, maybe with the user prompt you could attach it. Okay, maybe if it's one PDF and it must be attached, fine, that's a good way to do. And if it's a fixed amount of rules and you have maybe just one PDF of like hardly one page or two page, and it's a strict amount of rules, you could extract the text from the PDF and then attach to the system prompt, which is still fine. Okay, it's not going to consume much of a token, too many tokens. But if you have a case where you have so many different files that provide context, necessary context to the GenAI model, but you don't need everything for the current user input, you can actually extract only the key points that would be actually useful out of the entire set of rules. Then you would use context rounding. How would context rounding work in case of UiPath? That's the technology we are going through right now. So in UiPath, you might give, like in our case, we have four PDFs. Okay, we have four PDFs here. One is the employee policies, employee handbook. One is the employee leave policy. One is the employee mediclaim policy. One is the employee benefits program. Okay, so we have three PDFs. What UiPath does, it extracts the necessary data from this and it would ingest as embeddings. Okay, it would ingest the data as LLM understandable embeddings and store it in what they call as a vector database. Okay, a vector DB. Okay, and then whenever necessary, whenever your user prompt is asking for a particular data, it would use various different functions, or depending upon the type of data, etc. It would use a particular function, such as in the official documentation they have mentioned of cosine similarity search. Okay, they have mentioned that they use cosine similarity search. And further down they have also mentioned they use semantic similarity as well. So they use these similarity search functions to retrieve necessary data from this vector database. Okay, and then that is augmented or added, appended, I would say, to your user input, a user prompt. Okay, your user prompt is like this, and then whatever is the necessary data, that is required only for this user input, is appended to that user prompt and fed in. And all of this context rounding task happens within UiPath's AI trust layer. So nothing is fed to the LLM. Okay, so context rounding is not happening on the LLM's servers or third party servers, it's happening on UiPath's AI trust layer. So your user prompt, your context rounding files or data is not stored in some third party server and context rounding is enabled over there. Okay, whatever data you upload, it's ingested, embedded, retrieved, augmented by UiPath's AI trust layer. Okay, all of that happens in the UiPath trust layer. So let's see AI trust layer. Okay, so let's see that. So as per this is the official documentation. So as you can see, yeah, this is the ingesting process. It's embedded. Then they use something called as indexes. Okay, we'll see that in orchestrator, not orchestrator, in the AI trust layer in your cloud UiPath. Okay, in index is nothing but how you would organize your data in a database. So in our case, based on a use case or your current process, you could store all that data in a particular storage bucket and assign that as an index, okay, a unique index for context grounding. As of now, the limitation is it can only support, I guess, around 10 indexes. Yeah, 10 indexes per tenant. So you can have only 10 indexes, and they have recommended you maintain a one on one relationship in the sense that you have one folder, one index only. In other words, it does make sense, right? If your use case is an HR portal or a query system, why would you put financial policies in that, right? In a sense, if your use case is loan application approval, you won't feed or store that data in a HR index. So you have to maintain separate indexes, and when you have processes obviously stored in separate folders, it generally becomes a one-on-one relationship, but it's best practice. That's what they are trying to mention here when it comes to one-on-one. And the maximum limit is 10 indexes. The files supported are PDF, JSON, CSV, XLS, docs, TX, and TXT. Now PDF is what we will explore in this video, so let's keep that in mind. And yeah, so that's what I mean by index. And then vector database, obviously it's also in the UiPath service. Retrieval, as I mentioned in earlier, they use various different extraction, chunking, and retrieval techniques. And one they have specifically mentioned is cosine similarity search. So that's for sure that they're using. And yeah, that's a overview on what is context rounding. How does it, give results and etc. Let's explore. Oh yeah, and not to forget, this is the diagram that they have on the official documentation of how context rounding is done. And as you can see, the entire context rounding uh, workflow is within the AI, UiPath's AI trust layer. So as soon as you feed your business data, it's ingested, the searches, the RAG, everything's happening within the AI trust layer. The LLM gateway will just feed that user prompt to the LLM to give your desired output. So now let's start with the first, activity that we have under GenAI, that is context grounding search. Now, in order to search context grounding, first you need to have all the files ready, right? You need to have an index, as mentioned. So how do you do that? Let's explore. First, I'll go to Orchestrator, and in Orchestrator, you go to the folder that you wish to store these PDFs. Okay, I would go to storage bucket, and then here you would create a new storage bucket and upload your files here. So I have 4 PDFs. If I could show you, it would look something like this: an employee handbook. All the data in these PDFs are generated by ChatGPT. So here we have the leave policy, we have the Mediclaim policy, and benefit program. Okay, we have 4 PDFs, and that's what I have fed here. Now, how do I create an index? You would go to admin, go to your cloud UiPath admin, and under your organization, you will have the AI trust layer. And under AI trust layer, you can see there is context grounding. And if you go here, right now I already have an index ready, but let me create a new one. Okay, let me just copy these names so that I can use it. Okay, I'll just delete this for now. Okay, so that I can demonstrate how to create. Now I will click add new. I can give a name and a description. The source would be data storage bucket. Okay, in our case, it's a storage bucket. You can go to the folder which you have the storage bucket, select the storage bucket, and here you can select the type of files. Now, the reason behind this is you can store any other data as well. Okay, I know such as CSV, JSON, or any other types of data. And if you only want to process the ones that are in PDF, maybe you are using some Excel over there to maintain something else. You don't want that to be read by, uh, you know, you don't want it to be ingested in the vector database. So you can choose what type of file. In my case, all are PDFs, so I can either select all or I just select PDF. So it would still work. And then I'll click sync now. Now it would start, reading those PDFs, ingesting the data, embedding it, and performing all those tasks that were mentioned in the documentation. And it happens quite instantly. So if I just refresh, as you can see, it's updated. So it's not showing sync in progress or anything like that. And if I see view details, I cannot change. The only thing I can change would be I feel the description. Actually, no, I cannot even change the description. So once you create an index, you can't change anything. Okay. So please be sure of what you want to ingest. If not, there's always an option to delete and create a new one. Okay. So now this is one index. The index is employee assistant. The source for the source for data is storage bucket, and this is a description. Now let me come back to Studio and let's see how we can make use of this. We will use the activity context grounding search. It's a part of GenAI activities. Let the integration connection load, and here you have it. So the activity is loaded, the connection is done. Now the purpose of context grounding search is to search the necessary data from the vector database and give that as the result. As I mentioned in the OneNote file, right? If you have a use case like this, you only want the content that is necessary. These PDFs could have, I guess, around 10, 20, 30, 50 pages. Okay, that's the recommended limit um, to have a maximum of 50 pages or 30 MBs in PDFs. So if you have that many pages, you don't want to extract all the text, so you only want the relevant data. So context learning search would search the data based on your input and output those specific text from the PDF. So from 30, 40 pages, you will get only the 1 or 2 pages that are only necessary for your current user prompt. So let me show that. um, Come here and let me just ask the same question. Okay, that is, how many leaves do I have in a year? The orchestrator folder path will be shared. The index name, as you know, it's employee assistant, it's already reflecting. And now if you observe the properties panel, you have number of results and a query threshold. The result that you actually need is over here, search result. Okay, let me just create a variable. Okay, that's where our result will be stored. Number of results is the maximum number of results you actually want in return. So you will see how the data actually looks like. It's somewhat like a JSON format, but a string, okay, of string data type, but it would look like a JSON with it. So you can actually use it to parse. Now, query threshold is when it extracts whether it meets the threshold, in the sense that if I'm asking how many leaves do I get in a year, and if it extracts a text from Mediclaim policy, where there it might have found some nuances of sick leave or something like that. So it's sure that it's somewhat related to sick leaves, but it's not 100% sure. So it has given a confidence of maybe zero point 0.6. If you have kept a threshold of 0.75 and this particular result did not meet the threshold, it won't be reflected in your search result variable, or in other words, the output of this activity. So whatever three results or more than three results that it retrieves, if it exceeds the query threshold, only then it will reflect in your output. So maximum output that have specified here is three. So it can retrieve more than three, but if it does retrieve, it will shorten it down to the top three, the one that exceed the query threshold by a huge margin. So let's see how this works. It should technically go through the vector database. It won't go through, it will use whatever retrieval process UiPath has implemented in house and retrieve only the pages that contain data regarding leaves. So you won't find anything regarding employee handbook or employee benefit program or any of those PDFs. You should technically get the results from this PDF only. That's the leave policy. Let's see. It's taking some time to compile. Okay, it's executed. So let's extract. Okay, it's empty. Why do I get an empty result? It's because input text is not expecting your prompt. Okay, it's not expecting your user prompt. So if I was using content generation activity, then it would still successfully have returned some results. But here it's asking for input text. Text used to query the index or file and return similar content. So in other words, I can't directly ask a question how many leaves. It's not going to generate a response like how you would expect from GenAI. Mind you, this activity is not communicating with any third-party LLMs or anything like that. It's everything in-house. So you cannot ask a user prompt type of a question and expect a response. So let me rephrase the question. Okay, now let's restart. Okay, it's executed. Oh, it's still empty. Why would that be the case? Okay, let's understand it better. Let's try to further dig deep. Okay, so number of casual leaves is still not giving me the results. Why would that be? I still have the number of casual leaves here. Let me reduce the threshold then. Or maybe I restarted and then the input text is, oh yeah, I have to keep changes. Sorry, my bad. Okay, then I guess I could bring back the threshold to 7.5 and then try again. It should work now. I shouldn't have restarted the activity. I should have just stopped and debugged it again. That's my fault. Okay, it's still empty. Okay, now you get the results. So as you can see, now we have a search result. Now there could be multiple reasons why this could have happened. The threshold was definitely not the reason I feel, but here you have it, the search result. So if I open VS Code, where I already have pasted the results when I ran it previously, you can see the output would look something like this. So it would say what's the source file, what is the content, and then which page number from the PDF file it referred. So this is how the data comes. Now, when I said number of results as three, I have retrieved three results. Okay. So back over here, previously I couldn't get any results, right? Now let me ask the same query again, but how I had it previously, and change the threshold. Reduce it down to 0.65, and let's see what happens. Okay, I have brought it back to number of casual leaves. Let me reduce the threshold to maybe 6, 0.6. Okay, and now let's run it. Okay, it's taking some time to run, and yes, finally we've got some results with the same confidence or same threshold value. In the sense, sorry, with the reduced threshold value. Now, did you observe what happened? This is the same input text as before. Previously, did not give any results. I had to change the input text. But as soon as I reduced the threshold, I have retrieved some results here. So let me go and check that. There you go. And as you can see, we have got some results from the employee leave policy, content, etc., etc. So all the necessary details has been retrieved. So sometimes you need to play with the query threshold is what I'm trying to demonstrate. So 0.75 may not work all the time, but it's a recommended threshold. And you need not worry about the input text, to be honest, because when I'm using content generation, the input text and everything is already handled by that activity. So if you are using context rounding search explicitly, only then you need to be concerned of how you would feed this input text. Okay, so if you observe how the context rounding results are, now if I do the same thing with content generation, let's see what you would get. Okay, here we have content generation. Okay, the activity is loaded. I will choose model GPT-4o, and let me provide it a system prompt, like for example, you are an employee assistant You will answer employee queries regarding the organizational policies, leaves, mediclaim, and benefits and benefit program. So this is what I mentioned as the system prompt. Okay. Now there is multiple different rules that it needs to follow, but I won't get to that now. Okay, we have already discussed that in the previous. So in the user prompt, let me ask the same question, but now in the prompt format as we had before. How many leaves do I get in a year? Okay, so as you can see, that's my user prompt. Now I'll enable context grounding. You can either feed the PDF directly. Okay, I can directly assign the PDF path, and the PDF will be ingested as this activity gets executed. So when the activity gets executed, that file is ingested, embedded, put in the vector database, and whatever. So it will be done here. Or you can directly use the index. So in our case, I will use the index, an existing index, which orchestrate the path shared, and then what is the name of the index? It would be employee assistant. So here we have it. So now let's look at the output now. And if you observe the properties, one I would say drawback is you do not get the flexibility to play with the threshold value. Okay, that's not there. So that's a drawback. But if you want to, you could use a context rounding search before the content generation activity and disable context rounding in this activity and use the search using it. So you could do something like that, and it would cost the same because context rounding, each GenAI activity would consume, I guess, one AI unit if I'm not wrong, and content generation consume two AI units if you enable context rounding. So in other words, if you enable it, it's 2 units. If you do it separately, it is still 2 units because each activity would consume 1 unit each. So yeah, if you want the flexibility of a threshold value, then it's better to use context rounding search. If not, I hope UiPath implements the threshold property if we enable context rounding. So maybe they might implement it in the future. So let's see the results of our input. Top generated text. And last time in the previous video, we had masked text, but that was for PII detection. For context rounding, we'll get another output, citation string. That's nothing but the search result that we saw in the context rounding search activity. So it's something similar to that. So instead of creating a new variable, I might as well assign the same variable of search results. Yeah. So now let's look at the output of content generation with context rounding enabled. Okay, it's executed. And let's look at the search result first. Before the top generated text, let's look at the search result. There you go. Only difference here is it won't show me the content because it is mostly attached with the user prompt, but I can see the source. Okay, it's a citation string So it won't give me the content, it's given me which PDF or what is the source of the content that was added to the user prompt and which page number. So I have got three results: page 1, page 3, and then page 2 from the employee leave policy. Okay, so the reason being page 1, 3, and then 2 is again it depends on the threshold value. It is sorted based on high threshold value to lowest threshold value, and then whichever exceeds only above 0.75 is the one that's considered, and then within that the top three are taken out. So if you see page 1 is first, maybe it had the most content related to casual leaves, or okay, I had asked only about leaves. So since the leave table is present in the first page, that has the highest threshold probably. Okay, and then page 3 is given for some reason, and then page 2. Now let's see what was the top generated text, the actual output of content generation. And as you can see, it's very well formatted and it's related to the context we had given it. So it's not a vague output that we got from ChatGPT initially. So if I directly asked the question, how many leaves do I get? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have answered so well. We can try that now. So according to employee leave of this, and you can say it's given accurate information. So let me disable context grounding and let's see what we get. Since it is GPT-4o, probably the answer will be same as how it was when we ran it on ChatGPT. But let's see. Once agent builder comes into picture, there will be short-term memory, etc., etc. So right now, content generation, doesn't have a short-term memory as such. So at least that's what I think. Context rounding is the long-term memory, because that's something that's present in your storage bucket, and you have all the flexibility to change it or update it or delete something, and it can refer anytime. So that's a long-term memory for GenAI in UiPath. So let's see the top generated text now. Okay, as you can see, the result is so different. Because I had not given it context, it just gave me answer that it most likely thinks, would be relevant. So annual leave, vacation leave, these are not mentioned in my organization, dummy organization actually. So this is what's actually needed. But as you can see, as I disabled context rounding, I got something completely vague. Not vague, it makes sense, but it's not related to my organization. So the output is not accurate. So that is the purpose of context rounding. So if you ask me like why is it necessary, I could directly attach all the PDFs in the system prompt. Well, I explained it in this notepad here. It's just not efficient. Okay, it just creates, you know, provides too much information, and you'll end up consuming too many tokens. And more tokens consumed, the more cost it would. Let me rephrase it. The more tokens consumed, the more costlier it becomes. Okay, so that is why context rounding is needed. First reason is to give context to the agent or GenAI model. Second, so that your input is very efficient. So these are two main reasons, you know, context rounding is used. Okay. Did I just say efficient? Sorry, I would say cost efficient. Okay. The word cost word is very important here. Okay. So you don't want to feed like 10, 15 PDFs of data each and every time this activity runs. Okay, so yeah, that's about context rounding. There's one more activity that I would like to go through, but before that, there's one thing. Let's go back to existing index, shared. then the index. And let me ask another question about Mediclaim policies. If you have observed, I had a PDF called Mediclaim policy. So, Mediclaim policy. Uh, what is the Mediclaim policy in my organization? Okay, now let's see what output do I get. I should have used context rounding search activity for this, but let's just go with this one now. Okay, it's executed. Now let's look at the search research result. It has given me employee benefit program page number 1. And yeah, that's because we have two things related to health. Okay, we have an entire wellness benefit here. And that's about it. There's nothing related to Mediclaim. It's in the third PDF. As you can see, there's like a two-page Mediclaim policy here, but it has not at all referred it. Okay, so I'm pretty sure the top generated result will also be inaccurate. I need not search that, so show that again. But why is this happening? The reason being, if you go to the documentation, it says PDF, JSON, CSV, XLS, docs, and TXT. It never mentioned images. So it does not use OCR to extract any text, is what I assume, because my PDFs have native text, but in Mediclaim it's an image. There's only, oh yeah, the entire PDF is image, so there's no text at all. So in other words, since they mention PDF, they are talking about native text PDFs. Your scanned PDFs will not act as a context, even if you fed it using user prompt or anything like that. So that must be taken care of. I mean, I feel UiPath might introduce OCR based context rounding, such as for to support images, but for now they don't. And this is one clear example. It did not retrieve data from it. What if your PDF has images and text? You know, let's do that. Let me go to my storage bucket. I'll delete this file and let me upload a new folder, a file, sorry. Not this one. I have another Mediclaim policy over here and I'll upload that. Right now it's just uploaded in the storage bucket. It's not ingested by context grounding. Okay. So if I show you this PDF over here, this is the Mediclaim policy. It still has image, but from page 2, this is image, but here I have native text. So in other words, only this part or section of the PDF will be ingested into the vector database for context rounding. So let's see. Now I have uploaded it. Okay. Let me run it again. Okay. Technically it should give me, right? At least that's what I assume. It should give the results. There you go. We have medical employee leave policy PDF, page 2, source employee benefit PDF program. So you can see the leave policy has been extracted. Oh, sorry, it's not leave policy. Oh, my mind was somewhere else. Mediclaim is what I asked, right? Oh yeah, I forgot the question. So yeah, it's still not able to extract. Sorry. Why is that? Even I was shocked when I got a result. I just forgot the question. So yeah, it did not give the result. The reason being, I just mentioned when I uploaded the file here that it's not ingested yet. So you have to go back to your context rounding page and click sync now. So let me refresh before syncing. If you see, it will show you the last queried. When was it last queried? Now it's important that I refresh, not refresh, sorry, click the sync now in order to sync the index with whatever changes that have been done in the storage bucket. Only then will it reflect or give me the result that I want. Now, this is where the second activity that I wanted to demonstrate would come. Okay, that is known as update search index. Okay, now before running this context rounding, I wish to update the index. So it's known as update context rounding index. It's here. What this activity, um, as per the official documentation, they recommend to run it manually. Manually, in the sense, it should not be a part of an entire workflow because it's an asynchronous process. In other words, this activity will try to sync your index. That's all. That's the only purpose of this activity. It tries to, there's no other properties, as you can see. It doesn't give you any results or something. There's no output given by this activity. There's no out parameter. Its only purpose is to initiate a sync job, okay, for the index. And so it's an asynchronous process. The reason being, if I run this as a single workflow, my context rounding would still not give me the result. Let's see. In case of many documents, it would take a lot of time to sync, and so by the time context rounding in this content generation activity runs, the index is not yet synced. So the sync is still in progress, and you might either get an exception or maybe not get a result at all. Let's see. Now the update context rounding is initiated. It's completed, and now content generation is running. Okay. Technically, update context surrounding index should have synced the index, and thereby the context surrounding in this activity should be giving the accurate citation. But let's see. And as you can see, we have an empty search result. Now you know what happened when we first ran context grounding search. We were getting empty lists. Why is that? Because the index syncing process, the ingest, embedding, etc., was not completed. Because that was the first time we created the index, and we immediately came to Studio and started context rounding search, and we were getting this empty result multiple times. And then after some time, when we tried with the same threshold value, it was able to give the results. This is the reason why, because we started a syncing, index sync job. Initially, to we created the index, so that was the first time the data got ingested, etc. So the process that happens is the same, and when that happens, you cannot use context rounding. You will get no results. Now, if I just run it again, I'm pretty sure it will run, but I have to disable this process because otherwise it will start another sync job and I will get the same empty search result. Okay, so let me just disable this activity for now. But I assure you, once this activity has run, your context round, your index is already synced in. So technically, now we should get search results as mediclaim policies from the mediclaim policy PDF. Okay. Now, if I check if the sync is completed, I should get a search result. There you go. And finally, we have it from Mediclaim policy and page number two. Why is it page number two? Because there's text or native text only in page number two. Okay, the rest of it is still images. And so I know I just covered four different topics in just 20 minutes. The first one being PDFs, only native PDFs are ingested. Images are not extra, text is not extracted from images using OCR. Okay, that's the first thing I covered. Secondly, your update context grounding index. Oh no, the second one we covered was if you upload or change the document from your in your storage bucket, that does not mean the index is synced. So you have to separately do that. And third thing I covered was the update context grounding index. It's an activity that it runs asynchronously. Okay, which means if this runs, you can't use context rounding for until the sync is completed. Okay, so you have to run this independently in your pipeline, whatever agentic pipeline you have. The update context rounding index, if it runs, you have to give some gap, some kind of a delay. I don't know how much delay it would be before you perform any kind of context rounding specifically. Okay, that's the third thing I covered. The fourth thing I covered was why you get an empty search result. That's because if it is syncing, okay, if the index is getting synced or the index was just created, it will take some time. The same logic as the third point. It's an asynchronous process. So you'll get empty results. And that is clearly mentioned, if I'm not wrong, in the documentation. See, common errors and resolution. You may receive an error, no results found. In the ingestion job, if the ingestion job has not completed, that's what we got, no results found. Instead of no results found, we had, an empty list. Okay. So if we had exception handling, we could have just put this as a message. So, or you may receive an error, no schema found, if the job had failed, or if you had run the update context running again, you could have got something like data sourcing already in progress. Okay, so that is why they have specifically mentioned manually executing this activity is better because it's an asynchronous process. It's event based. Set up an automation to run this pipeline every time a new document is added or removed from the storage bucket. Okay, so yeah, follow these best practices and you can do amazing things with Gen AI. And that's about it for context grounding in Gen AI activities. Not covering it for autopilot because the base idea is still the same of how you create context grounding in your admin page and in your AI trust layer, and then how context grounding works. The base idea is still the same. So how you could enable it in autopilot is different, but the working structure or the process that happens behind is the same. So yeah, this is context rounding and Gen AI activities. See you guys in the next video where we'll cover further more activities from Gen AI, and then hope so we'll have agentic public preview by then, and we'll have some fun with agentic automation. Thank you. Have a nice day.